Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hi everyone. We have now lecture number 4 by Dr. Ashraf about the environmental geochemistry. Firstly, I wish you have a good time for the last exam and have a good mark, inshallah. So the lecture today discuss about the radioactive contamination. As we see on this picture, these people are recorded contamination in some area after some explanation from head factors. So we have know about the Geiger counter. Geiger counter can measure the contamination of the explosion radiation area. So we can see some injured people here, and he help him to transport it. Some people die here, and some transported outside of the area. Radioactive decay. Why is happening? What is mean by radiation? Radiation is the some chemical elements which have a big amount of total neutron and proton inside his nucleus. So it's a big one and heavy. So it must release some of this energy outside of the atom to be stable. This is elements, or these elements unstable. So it must be transferred to stable element. Which doing that, it must be release beta and the gamma and the alpha particles through different times still to be a stable element. So this is in naturally, but in factory or in some accident or some tourism or some war between any countries or something, exploration, radiation exploration, some happen suddenly in a times, small times. So as we see in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan in the Second World War. So you can see the big explanation of the radiation. This is one picture of the radiation which happened during the war. But in all time of our day, we have decay of radiations. Element can be radiated element like gamma rays. That's very, very dangerous for human beings or everything. So the less is beta particles, and less is alpha particles. So we can see now some small film about the radiations and what is mean by this is radiation. So here we can see on this is picture, the second one, radiation or radioactive contamination. Radioactive contamination is a radiation exposure could occur if radioactive material, you can see here, is released into the environment. Okay, radioactive material released into the environment as the result of an accident or an event in nature, naturally something happened, or an act of tourism or war between two countries. As example, uranium exploration or radon or thorium, or which are be in some small bombers or some factory or any good factory for the power of energy. So such a release could expose all people, all environment, all bodies, their surrounding environment and personal properties, which are making some happen is not good. Now we can see this is filmed together with each other to see what is happening during this is exploration and what is mean by explosion.
When we hear the word radiation, it's tempting to picture huge explosions and frightening mutations. But that's not the full story. Radiation also applies to rainbows and a doctor examining an X-ray. So what is radiation really, and how much should we worry about its effects? The answer begins with understanding that the word radiation describes two very different scientific phenomena: electromagnetic radiation and nuclear radiation. Electromagnetic radiation is pure energy consisting of interacting electrical and magnetic waves oscillating through space. As these waves oscillate faster, they scale up in energy. At the lower end of the spectrum, there's radio, infrared, and visible light. At the higher end are ultraviolet, X-ray, and gamma rays. Modern society is shaped by sending and detecting electromagnetic radiation. We might download an email to our phone via radio waves to open an image of an X-ray print, which we can see because our screen emits visible light. Nuclear radiation, on the other hand, originates in the atomic nucleus, where protons repel each other due to their mutually positive charges. A phenomenon known as the strong nuclear force struggles to overcome this repulsion and keep the nucleus intact. However, some combinations of protons and neutrons, known as isotopes, remain unstable or radioactive. They will randomly eject matter and/or energy known as nuclear radiation to achieve greater stability. Nuclear radiation comes from natural sources like radon, a gas which seeps up from the ground. We also refine naturally occurring radioactive ores to fuel nuclear power plants. Even bananas contain trace amounts of a radioactive potassium isotope. So if we live in a world of radiation, how can we escape its dangerous effects? To start, not all radiation is hazardous. Radiation becomes risky when it rips atoms' electrons away upon impact, a process that can damage DNA. This is known as ionizing radiation, because an atom that has lost or gained electrons is called an ion. All nuclear radiation is ionizing, while only the highest energy electromagnetic radiation is. That includes gamma rays, X-rays, and the high energy end of ultraviolet. That's why, as an extra precaution during X-rays, doctors shield body parts they don't need to examine, and why beachgoers use sunscreen. In comparison, cell phones and microwaves operate at the lower end of the spectrum, so there is no risk of ionizing radiation from their use. The biggest health risk occurs when lots of ionizing radiation hits us in a short time period, also known as an acute exposure. Acute exposures overwhelm the body's natural ability to repair the damage. This can trigger cancers, cellular dysfunction, and potentially even death. Fortunately, acute exposures are rare, but we are exposed daily to lower levels of ionizing radiation from both natural and man-made sources. Scientists have a harder time quantifying these risks. Your body often repairs damage from small amounts of ionizing radiation, and if it can't, the results of damage may not manifest for a decade or more. One way scientists compare ionizing radiation exposure is a unit called the sievert. An acute exposure to 1 sievert will probably cause nausea within hours, and 4 sieverts could be fatal. However, our normal daily exposures are far lower. The average person receives 6.2 millisieverts of radiation from all sources annually, around a third due to radon. At only 5 microsieverts each, you'd need to get more than 1,200 dental X-rays to rack up your annual dosage. And remember that banana? If you could absorb all the banana's radiation, you'd need around 170 a day to hit your annual dosage. We live in a world of radiation. However, much of that radiation is non-ionizing. For the remainder that is ionizing, our exposures are usually low, and choices like getting your home tested for radon and wearing sunscreen can help reduce the associated health risks. Marie Curie, one of the early radiation pioneers, summed up the challenge as follows: "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less."
Okay, now we discuss what is the types of contamination. There is 2 types of contamination. One is naturally, another one is manufactured or which is done by the man. This is caused by natural, and another one caused by the man or an accident. The first one, natural resources, which come from four types. Natural sources is about 4 types. Terrestrial environment, in the ground, where are some radioactive elements such as radon, uranium, thorium found in the Earth's crust, as you know, from the mining exploration or something from the natural decay. Another one, number P, is radioactive material in the water. The concentration of radioactive material in the water or something happen when some factory put hit exhausts in a river like Nile, as we see some bad material like pigment or paint of materials which put some residue in the our drinking water. This is dangerous one. Depending on the source of the water. For example, groundwater, when it is passed between uranium-rich rocks, when rain is fall down and the water can run in the ground, in the rocks which has uranium-rich rocks, it's affected by it. The water affected by this is uranium found in the ground, like granite which have uranium. So it's affected by it and it's polluted and very high rates. Many times during many years, it's a high concentration of the uranium in the ground water. So we have now 2 natural resources in the crust, as the Earth's crust, like uranium or thorium, and in the second one is the in the water, groundwater. The third one, radioactive gases. Some gases found near the surface of the Earth as explosive from the ground, from the volcanoes, from something like that, from hot spots, something like that. They may be formed as a result of decomposition of the radioactive Earth's elements, such as the evolution, which are resulted from decay of element thorium in the Earth. Okay, not found the element itself, but the gases found near the surface, which the gas is going to be run outside of the Earth. The number 4 or number D is the cosmic radiation. We have all the day sun days from the outer planet, the outer space, including the galaxies, everything around our solar system, a series of rays, some which are carried out into the Earth's atmosphere and interact with its component. So, include solar radiation from some of them can make clear change on the Earth's surface. You hear about the cosmic radiation. What is the difference between cosmic radiation and the normal sun radiation? Cosmic radiation is have a high amount of the X-rays, something like that, or ultraviolet rays, which are make something dangerous for the human being. So the Allah created some magnetic field around the Earth to protect this is Earth, to protect it from the cosmic radiation. Where it put it in the pole, the North Pole and South Pole of the Earth. What is called the in Arabic قوس قزح. When this is element decay, it's making some pour out of the fantastic color. Can you see it? So it is protected. Allah protected us from this is cosmic radiation naturally by this is all magnetic field, which is called sometimes Van Allen belt around the Earth, as you hear before in any another subject. Okay, the first one is natural radiation. Second one is industrial sources, which are coming from the affected of man around or in the environment. So this is a group of the sources of the radiation pollution created by a man itself for various purposes. And among these sources, the following from this is what is the types of industrial sources, medical sources of radiation. All the hospital or medical experiment have some materials which can cause some radiation. Some type of radiation may be used for the medical purpose, such as X-ray. As you know, everyone, they're going to be something harm in the bone or something in legs or something, any part of or his lungs, something like that. It must be going to be done X-ray. So X-ray is the some ray. So you can see some doctors write some jackets or something like that, protect himself from the X-ray, which are exposed every day from many patients or many persons coming to his hospital. So X-ray used to diagnose condition of diseases, something bones or lungs or heart diseases or something like that. So the first one in industrial source is medical sources. So second one is nuclear explosion. Nuclear explosions done by the man, of course, it's industrial. The environmental that is chosen to cause this nuclear explosion, it must be a determined factor in the severity and severity of the detonations at the air or detonation, which make contamination is the it must be done in under the water. If you wanted to be going to save nuclear explosion, you put on under the water, like under the ocean, as you hear from the news in all time. Some America or some China or some Japan making some nuclear exploration down in the oceans, because the water absorb most of this is radiation. But if you are going to make a nuclear explosion on the Earth's surface, it's be more dangerous for the human. Due its ability to spread polluting atomic waste to all the elements of the biological environment, when it's called it it's on the surface. So as the air detonation is more harmful than the detonation underwater. This is good one, you can mention that. So the third one of the manufacturers of which are not naturally, the nuclear reactors. Nuclear reactors, the impact of radioactive pollution resulting from nuclear reactor can be reduced by taking into account the selections of places as far away as possible from the pollution center. You must making some nuclear reaction factor outside of the pollution. Okay, بعيدا عن المدن، بعيدا عن التجمعات. Okay, and the food and the water and sources that depend on them. Okay, so now before we leave this area, we can see also this is film about the nuclear.
In today's video, we're going to look at the terms irradiation and contamination, and we'll see what it is that makes radiation harmful. Irradiation is the process by which an object is exposed to radiation, and that could be radiation of any type. So ionizing radiation, like alpha particles, beta particles, gamma rays, or X-rays, but also non-ionizing radiation, like ultraviolet or microwave radiation. So if any radiation of any type was to reach your body, we'd say that you had been irradiated. Contamination, on the other hand, is when radioactive particles get onto other objects. So if you had some radioactive uranium on your arm, then we'd say that you're contaminated. Now, contamination itself isn't actually a problem. The real issue is that the radioactive material that you're contaminated with is likely to decay and irradiate you. And it's this increased risk of irradiation which is the issue. The next thing we need to look at is what determines how harmful radiation is. This depends on a range of different things, but the main ones are what type of radiation it is, where you're exposed to it, and the amount of radiation that you receive. We saw earlier that there are loads of different types of radiation, and that they can be split between ionizing and non-ionizing. Generally, it's the ionizing ones which are the most dangerous, because they can enter living cells and interact with the molecules inside. In particular, the radiation can ionize our DNA, which can cause mutations. And in rare cases, this can lead to the cells dividing uncontrollably and developing cancer. One thing we should add is that ultraviolet radiation can also lead to cancer, even though it's not always considered to be ionizing. If we arrange them all in one long list, from the most harmful to the least harmful, then it would look like this, with alpha being the most harmful, and radio waves not being harmful at all. However, the order of this list changes depending on the location of the source. If the source is outside the body, then alpha stops being the most harmful, because it gets stopped by a short distance of air, and can't penetrate the skin. Beta and gamma radiation, on the other hand, can penetrate the skin, and so for external sources, these two are by far the most dangerous. If the source is on the body though, like in the case of contamination, or if it's inside the body, for example if you ate something that had been contaminated, then alpha radiation would be the most dangerous, because it would be able to make it into your cells. The last factor we mentioned was the amount of radiation that you're exposed to, which we can call the dosage. This will depend on three things: how far away from the source you are, how long you're exposed to it for, and most importantly, how radioactive that substance is. In order to minimize irradiation and avoid contamination, we need to take precautions whenever we're around radioactive sources. This includes wearing protective gear, like gloves and overalls, but also handling the radioactive item with tools like tongs, rather than using our hands directly, and keeping the item in a lead-lined box whenever possible. One last thing we should mention is that being irradiated can't cause you to mutate into a mutant in any way, and can't make you radioactive. So if you've been exposed to lots of radiation, you can't then emit that radiation to others. It's only if you're carrying a radioactive source, and so being contaminated, that you could then harm others.
Okay, what is type of radiation pollution? What is the type of pollution? We have a divided term of occurrence into three types, and they are follow. What is type of radiation pollution is at a moment, or continuous, or accidents, something like that. Number one is continuous radiation pollution. This type of pollution occurs continuously and permanently in the places where the radioactive material are found, such as uranium mines, or uranium mines, nuclear reactors, and experiment laboratories. This is three areas, for example, is have continuous reactive of pollutions. Okay, the second one is instantaneous radioactive contamination. Instantaneous at once. It occurs at a specific time. This is first one is all time. It have contamination. This is another one. Instantaneous is radioactive. Is a specific time of circumstances. For example, when doing a nuclear experiment, and experiments with the radioactive materials. This is experiment which is done on the ground or done in the underwater. It's an instance in one time, specific time, not in all time. So the third one is accidental radioactive contamination. This type of contamination occurs when experiment with hard doses material fail, hazard materials fails, or when control of the material used in the experiment is lost. Oh, okay, when you are transported some nuclear materials or something from place to another place, maybe some accidents happen. Okay, we have three types of radiation pollution: continuous, instantaneous, in some specific time, and by the accident. What is the methods of exposure to radioactive contamination? What is the method of exposure? Exposure to radioactive contamination is carried out in two ways. First one is internal pollution. What is happened to me when going to be contaminated by radioactive? Internal pollution, internal our body. It occurs when radioactive material enters the body through swallowing, eating, or breathing radioactive material, or by entering them through open wound. When you are injured, when you have injured here, maybe some swelling of some material inside your body by this is injured in your skin, or they are absorbed through the skin, or when the skin is not injured, it may be absorbed when you are touched. This is radioactive material. So, and some of this material may be permanently settled in the virus body organ, which are when enters this is your body, maybe settles in the lungs or in the heart or in the liver or the stomach or something like that, or it can eliminate it through blood. We can be reduced, going out, eliminate through blood or sweat, or can sweat, your urine when you are going to bathroom, and the fecus when you are excreted. Okay, so another film we can talking about this is radiation.
Nuclear power stations produce electricity, which of course is extremely useful. However, they also make radioactive waste. Radioactive waste can come from a range of activities, including generating electricity from nuclear power stations, treating medical illnesses, and conducting research. Did you know that radioactive waste can be harmful to us, either by irradiation or contamination? We're going to look at these two in this video. Irradiation is when a person or object is exposed to radiation without coming into direct contact with the radioactive source. The person doesn't make direct contact with the radioactive barrel, but since irradiation can happen at a distance, the person is still at risk. The damage to the person only happens when the person is in the area of the radioactive waste. Therefore, the person is only exposed to the radiation for a short time, and so receives a low dose of radiation. Irradiation can sometimes be useful, particularly during cancer treatment. People are irradiated in an attempt to remove cancerous cells from their body. Irradiation is also used to sterilize surgical equipment or to remove bacteria from fruit in supermarkets. The objects don't become radioactive themselves, and so are safe for use or consumption. Contamination is when a person actually comes into contact with the radioactive wastes. The person takes the radioactive source away with them, and so are exposed for a longer period of time, and consequently have a higher dose which can lead to more damage. Contamination can happen in a variety of ways, from picking up a source, to breathing it in, and to ingesting it. Contamination is used in medicine by injecting radioactive tracers into the body to see possible blockages. Radioactive tracers are also used to find leaks in water pipes. Radioactive waste can remain hazardous for a very short or a very long period of time, depending upon the different half-lives. Half-lives mean the level of hazard of the radioactive waste reduces with time. To learn more about half-lives, watch this video. If we start off with a kilogram of radioactive waste, that has a half-life of 100 years. After 100 years, we will have 500 grams of radioactive waste. After another 100 years, there will be 250 grams of it, and so on. Eventually, the amount of radiation will decrease until it reaches the same level as background radiation. For medical contamination that involves injecting radioactive sources, isotopes that have very short half-lives are selected. The half-life is long enough that they stay active for the detection to be done, but short enough that they reduce the low-risk levels as quickly as possible. Background radiation comes from artificial and natural sources around us that we experience daily. It is low in magnitude, so it isn't harmful. However, for some radioactive wastes to reach this low background level, it may take several thousand years. So just how harmful is radioactive waste? The answer depends on the half-life of the waste and whether a person is irradiated or contaminated. It's like asking how long is a piece of string. We've learned about the differences between irradiation and contamination. To learn about different uses of radiation, watch this video.
Okay, now what is the second one of the internal? First one is internal pollution inside our body. Second one is external pollution. This is what happens when radioactive material present in the form of dust. You can walking on the dust, dust powder or liquid settle on the outer surface of skins, your skin, your hair, your clothes. Contamination may be happen in all of this is part of your outside body, external pollution. So can become internal. When our external pollution coming from your body, from your eyes, from your clothes, from your hand or something like that, it can become internal. Okay, the second one, external pollution, can be changed to internal pollution. Radioactive material enter your bodies and making some diseases or maybe going to be harmful to be die. So, health risk from radioactive contamination. We have a risk, yes, we have a risk. Very dangerous material contaminated. This is what is called radioactive material. Radioactive material causes some what is called acute radiation syndrome. Syndrome in Arabic what is called متلازمة الإشعاع الحاد. So acute radiation syndrome, like I am talking about the metabolism syndrome, متلازمة التمثيل الغذائي. Okay, I talking about in some lecture before. So this is the group of the diseases connected to each other. Acute radiation syndrome. What is acute radiation syndrome? Radiation sickness. Radiation sickness. You are sick by many diseases by radiation, or radiation poisoning. You have a poisoning of the radioactive material. What is called in short term ARE. Acute radiation syndrome. Acute radiation syndrome is a dangerous disease that affects people when exposed to high level of radiation within short period of time. A small time, something like atomic bomb is going to be explosive. This is all area, all people around the small area. It's we die. Second one is have high rate of the dose of the radioactive element, which have this is maybe something acute all his life, acute radiation syndrome. And like Japanese now, for the second generation or third generation or fourth generation, now it's happened from 1945. It's until now have some acute radiation. Japanese have acute radiation syndrome from Nagasaki and Hiroshima places, and it is all occur when? How is acute radiation syndrome happen? When exposure to high dose of radiation as the surround of the atomic bomb done. Okay, in the event when radiation penetrates the body and reaches the internal organ like liver, like heart, like something like that. Happen also when the entire or most of the body have been exposed to radiations. all the body you have may be affected by this is contamination. The first one is exposure or radiation within short period of time, that is several minutes. Even several minutes, even if you have radiation several minutes, maybe have the acute radiation syndrome. Radiation burn. What is making radiation burn? Radiation burn may be like sunburn, like a hot burn on the fire, like something like that. Radiation burning occurs when called cutaneous radiation injury, for short CRI, cutaneous radiation injury, when the skin is exposed to large doses of radiation. The first one is short doses, short time, large doses. This is large doses of radiation is suspected to occur when person has not been exposed. Yeah, okay. How to you are be radiated burn? If you are not going to be exposed to heat or electrical or chemical source, but you are heat now, you have burn now, and the following groups are vulnerable to the occurrence of radiation burn. Who is the people can be occur in radiation burn? Radiation burn. If you have some burn in your skin, but you don't remember, you have exposed to heat, no direct heat, or electrical or chemical, it must be done by radiation. Okay, who is people? People who are exposed to radioactive material that emit beta particle. Radioactive material emit gamma particle and beta particle and alpha particle. Okay, this is all low energy X-ray. People who suffer, who is people going to be exposed to radiation burn? One, who exposed to radioactive material which this is emit beta or gamma or X-ray. Number two, people who suffer from acute radiation syndrome, which have a long time doses of radiation. This is many diseases connected to each other, and it does not necessarily mean that everyone who suffer from radiation burn will have acute radiation. Okay, now we are differentiating between radiation burn here or something like that, or the what is called acute radiation syndrome. Acute radiation syndrome is still with all your life, but radiation burn may be going done or be good healthy after that. Not all they have radiation burn, it must be have a radioactive syndrome, acute radioactive syndrome. The injured suffered by burning radiation from a range of symptoms that maybe appear on them after several hours of exposure to radiation, or after several days, after several hours. If you are be exposed to radiation for several hours, or be after several days, and can evolve to another depending on the form of the area. Also depend on the form of the area, which can be you are injured, and the close and the doses which are radiation. It's dependent on the area and the doses. How many times, how many long times you are absorbed by the skin, and the symptoms that appear on people infected with the following. What is the appearance on your people when you are called him you have radioactive fever? What is happening in our body? Itching, sensation of numbness when you are sit in your legs many times. You have some what is called sensation of numbness, which are the blood going to be through the body well. You have what is called numbness اللي هي تنميل الجسم. Redness of the skin, skin be red in color. Okay. Edema due to fluid retention and swellings, which are be your legs like this, which has a fluid تورم القدمين أو الجلد. Okay, edema or in Arabic edema. Okay, increased risk of cancer. The first dangerous diseases which causes by the radioactive materials is the cancer, السرطان, cancer. People who have been exposed to large doses of the radiation are more likely to develop cancer with the age. After time of your old age will be cancer appear. If you not appear and you are young, will appear in your when you are old man. So the instructions and directions of the emergency you must officials must be taken to avoid exposure to radiation. You must going to the hospital. You must going to be emergency office. You told him I have some radiation burn or some radiation explosive, or I have some in my skin itching, or my skin dumping or something like that, or the skin is red color. Okay, you must going to the hospital and the emergency office of the your state you are live. Okay. And review of the emergency center. You must review the emergency center. This is dangerous not to be going cancelled from your mind. You must going to the hospital or emergency center. The case will be mentioned by the health staff in order to track its long-term effect, and be this is special doctors in this is emergency center, special doctors by the radiation, and who is knowing the solve the problem of when some person affected by radiation, and treat him. He knows how to treat him, and the incidence of the cancer is small if the exposure to radiation is a small dose. If you have a small dose, you maybe have a cancer or not. But if you have a big or huge amount of doses of radiation, it must be causes your cancer. What is the cancer? Cancer is the going to be making some disturbance of the DNA inside your nuclear body. Inside your body, so it is going, the cells going to be behavior in different orientation, not be controlled. The cell growth not can be controlled, so it's cancer done. يحدث السرطان عندما تسلك الخلية سلوكا عشوائيا لا يمكن السيطرة عليه في أماكن مختلفة من الجسم. So that the incidence of this cancer is similar to the rates of the occurrence due to the genetics. Smoking, maybe cancer causes by some genetics from your family, from smoking, for the diet, when you are making a wrong diet, or exposure to the chemicals, or the and in the events of cancer, it causes cannot be distinguished whether it due to radiation or smoking. Maybe smoking making cancer, or any other factor. Maybe cancer happened from the any other factor, not especially on the radiation. But radiation must cause radiation for long doses or long time with high doses. It must be going to be have a cancer. This is a fact. So what is damage happen inside to the body cells, especially which are affected by the radiation dangerous, is children. All of us, we have afraid about our children. So it's children, it's a small body, a small protection, something like that. So children and the fetuses are the, which is children and the old age, are the most affected group by the radiation, which are old men or the small age human beings like children. So this is two groups of by radiation which are exposed as the process of cell division. what is happening inside the children's body? Cell division. You know from biology, cell must be divided to be grow up. You are from transfer from baby to children to young, yes, and to be old adult or something like that. So it's cell divided. It to be to grow up. So it's the radiation affected on cell division in their bodies is very fast. It's very fast. This is cell division is still very fast, which makes them more likely to be affected by radiation. So it's affected on this is division and making some gene disturbance in his life, which leads to this disruption of the division. This is radiation makes disruption. It's not against the normal of the division process and the damage to the cell. Okay, radiation kill this is cell or damage this is cells or making this cell grow randomly. It is not uniform. It is go random and making some big small the body immunization attack. This is cancer when coming to the body, and they make some bulk of the tissue inside your body, what is called cancer. Okay. What is the radiation? We're talking about the affected of the radiation in our body and the children and how to be done and where the sources and so. Now we're talking about the most important part is environmental risks. What is the environmental risk? It resulted from the radioactive contamination. This is our main subject we must discuss it. The radiation affects the environment in a large and complex way. This is not simple way, but this is by complex way coming from thousands of years or hundreds of years by the radiation. And nuclear practice, which coming from the modern our modern life, especially in the last century, which from 19,000 to 20,000. So it's going to be nuclear practice. Produce radionuclides, by English radionuclides, which that reaches the environment and pollute it. Okay, all the environmental practice or environmental nuclear practice going to be radiate or emit what is called X-ray, gamma ray, alpha, beta, something like that, which causes pollute the environment. Therefore, a special scientific system has been developed. We must, when you are going to making a nuclear practice, you must making safe. You must have a system developed deals with the physical and the chemical properties of it. What you are working done. You must know what you are working done. You don't working without you know what is the result, what is the damage of this is your experiment. So you put the rules to save this is experiment. And study Earth's impact on the multiple and the complex. Environmental system, firstly, the behavior of these radionuclides and consequently the final results of them, which are represented by the merging of the nuclides. This is nuclides which are emitted some gamma rays and beta and alpha rays. It must be transporting by safely from place to another place, which causes this is emission causes pollution of water and the air and soils, even human and plants. Okay, this is all 5 factors affected by the radiations. Again, what is the risk result from radioactive contamination on the nature or environment? Pollution of water, pollution of air, pollution of soil, pollution of human and plants. Among the factors that affected this behavior of the radioactive are the following. between these all factors. What is the first one? The release of radionuclides and the abundance from their source of the environment. It's going release of radionuclide in the abundance from their sources in the ground, or something like granite, which have uranium, something like that. Okay, the area surrounding the rocks which have, or earths which have the source of the radioactive material, like uranium, like thorium, like radon, something like that. Okay, the second place is the chemical properties of radionuclides. Control the limits of radionuclides release. Okay, and the chemical properties of radionuclides which can release. The third one is the types and extents of radionuclides spread critical paths of the water. We must control the pathway of the this is radioactive material when our water contaminated, or soil contaminated, or air contaminated, which what is the factor is spreading of this radioactive materials. Physical character of an ecosystem exposed to pollution. We must study what is physical character of our ecosystem, closed ecosystem. The extended effect of radioactive radionuclides on the environment. It must be safe. The transitions of the radionuclide from one ecosystem to another. This is, if you have some contaminated area, you must close it. You must don't open it to the human resources or human activity. So you must close, not allow to transport from radionuclides from area to another area. The ability of an ecosystem to dilute and dissipate the radionuclides, the way in which radionuclides travel to plant. Okay, what is the ability of radioactive to travel to planet during the water or during the soil? Method of digestion and excretions in the animal. How this is, you must study how the method which animals eating plant and must excretion another area to put the contamination of radioactive. Transportation of animal, making transportation of radioactive material. The pattern of the water, air, soil, plant, and human cycle change in nature, which are maybe changes surrounding nature. Food consumption, how to eat, how to something contaminated foods or something like that, or dietary habits of individual. Some consumption, another uses the foods, contaminated food. The proportions and numbers of the individual exposed to radiation, it must be controlled. So now we are dealing with the radiation contaminated area. What is the rules to put with the radiation contaminated area? It's easy to deal. How to keep the area which you have contaminated by radiation. It's easy to deal with the small area with limited radiation pollution. Okay, with limited radiation we can control, but huge amount of radiation we can't control. Okay, it's easy to deal with a small area with limited radiation pollution by removing the contaminated top layer from the soil. If you have some explosion happen in the area, or something accident happen on some containers or something like that, you can first remove the thick layer of the soil. You can remove the first thick layer of the soil, or removing contaminated material if you are see by your eyes from it. But if the polluted area is a large area and its pollution level are high, like Chernobyl accident in Russia, something like that, then some measures must be taken by Geiger to deal with the area. You can limit the area and remove the pollution. If you have something container or something polluted container, something on you must first remove. This is pollution, and it should examine the soil to ensure that it is suitable for the living. After the action and removing the soil or can count by the Geiger, you must be safely if this is area suitable for the human being to live it or not. You must be controlled of that, or that is suitable for the carrying out some human activity on it or not. We can transfer, this is a human activity which have be agriculture or factory, so we can transfer this is material outside of the contaminated area, or still this is a material if it is contaminated still at the, as it is, and transported the humans population outside this is area to live in new area. Among the methods, what is the methods used to deal with the area contaminated with the radiation? Number one, impose restriction on people wishing to access the contaminated area. What you must put the rules to restricted people to enter this area. First one. Number two, preventing the use of the area contaminated with the mining, tailing in any way. No going to be make any activity of mining, some such as building on it, because the proportion of the random gases produced by the mining is very high. Because if you are going to mining, maybe gases going out the polluted the air. Okay. Number three, the use of chemical treatment to prevent the transmissions of the pollution from the soil to the animals through the use of the Prussian blue, a chemical that is added to the soils. Prussian blue, it added to the soils to prevent the radiation contaminated, and is preventing the mixing of the cesium in the milk, which coming from the animal and beef, and it increases its excretion outside the body. Okay. Number four, adding potassium to the radioactivity contaminated soils to prevent the soil from the absorbing the cesium element. Okay. Adding potassium to the radioactive contaminated soil. Potassium is going to be absorb the radioactive like Prussian blue. Okay, this is two chemical material which prevent the contamination of radioactive material. Okay, how to act in the event of radioactive contamination? Radiation does not contain any properties that enable people to see. Okay, radiation, you can't see the radiation or feel it or taste it. You can not taste it. Upon exposure to a specific accidents, people don't know whether I am contaminated or not contaminated pollution with the radioactive. Okay, but if you are feeling by these red scans or itching or something, you can feel. But before that, you can't feel what are you exposed to radiation or not. Okay, but the following measures and precautions can be taken to reduce the occurrence of pollution. First one, exit for what you can do, how to act in the event when radioactive contamination done, explosive like that, or you are hearing some factory have radioactive contaminated explosive, or some contaminated container, some radioactive container fall down on the ground and damaged or something. What you can do? First one, exit from the vicinity of the accident. You must going to be exit from the vicinity of the accident, تخرج من منطقة الحادث, and go to the nearest safe area building as directed by the officials and the medical person, emergency office, as we talking before. So, number two, disposing of outer clothing. Disposing, you can remove this your clothing and fire it, or go to be exit from your life. Okay, This procedure will reduce the possible of any external or internal contamination. Your clothes, you can burn it or you can remove it away. First one, you can going to be the emergency exit from the area of contaminated. Remove your contaminated clothes. Okay. The third one, reduce the time of exposure to radiation. All this is two factors reduce your exposure time to be radiated. Put clothes inside the plastic bag. You don't give your clothes to another person to contaminate it or put inside the door of your house. Okay, put in plastic bag and keep it away from the people, or you're going to burn it. It's a good one. In order not to be exposed to radiation, and it can be placed in the corner of the room, and one plastic can't emit anybody, and the windows must be covered before. Any if you have injured in your skin or something, or in some legs or face or something, you must be covered. You must be covered the injured in your skin, which are the fast way to the contaminated your body by the radioactive material. Okay. Before touching contaminated items to prevent the entry of the radioactive material into them. Number 4, washing the exposed part of the body with the plenty of lukewarm water. Lukewarm water and soap to get rid of pollution. You must take a shower and put huge amount of soap to clean yourself good, while avoiding touching non-polluted area that were covered with clothes to prevent the spread of the pollution in them. And cover if you have some small area was contaminated, you can cover it this is area with clothes to prevent the spreading of pollution in them. In the event that the authorities responsible for the accident determine the possibility that the people and the place will be exposed to internal pollution, people can take medicines to try to reduce the presence of the radioactive material inside the body. When the government tell us that we have some radioactive elements, radiation here, accident determination, the government must give the people what is medicines, you must be treated themselves. Okay, this is our reference to our uses. You can go to any website and going to be remember some small important items, and making see review of articles and watching YouTube videos or animations or something like that. I wish you understand what is the radiation and what is the affected of our body, and how the unstable element must be transferred to stable element by radiations, medical radiations, or something experimental radiations, or healthy materials which uses in some hospital to make experiment. All this is area maybe have continuous contamination, but the accidents is the short time contamination, but it's very dangerous if you have exposed to large amount of radioactive material. Radioactive material is a very, very dangerous material which can causes die at a second when you are nearest this is explosion, and maybe make acute radioactive syndrome in your life, or maybe causes your cancer. أتمنى من الله سبحانه وتعالى أن لا يتعرض أحد إلى الإشعاع ومخاطر الإشعاع سواء عليه أو على البيئة أو المحيطين به. وأتمنى لكم محاضرة شيقة، وإن شاء الله نتقابل في المحاضرة القادمة. Thank you everyone. Bye bye. السلام عليكم.